Hello and welcome back to BSG Webinars. I'm your host, Dan Carney, coming to you from my home office in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. Thanks for joining us. This is our 12th episode. Future episodes are posted on our website, so you can find that at bsgcraftbrewing.com, and there's a tile on the homepage, and it'll take you directly to the webinars. That's also where you can find a link directly to our past webinars, so be sure to check some of those out. New episodes usually air once a week and on Thursdays. Next week, we'll have Juan Medina from the RAR Technical Center presenting an in-depth look at how to understand read malt certificates of analysis. And on September 10th, we'll be introducing the new malt lineup from Leopold Brothers. The Leopold Brothers link will be up soon, so please check back for links to register on our website. Throughout the webinar, I ask that you ask questions through the Q&A function, which is usually at the center of the toolbar below. You can also send follow-up questions to webinars at bsgcraft.com. Now, today's speakers are Carlos Ruiz, Dr. Florian Schul, and Johan Bertazzoni. Their talk is entitled HVG Presents Meanwhile in Hallertau Live. And with that, I would like to introduce our guests. Hello, Carlos.
Hello, Dan. Good afternoon. Greetings, everybody.
Good to see you.
Hi.
Appreciate you joining us today. So we're going to start off today with a presentation from Carlos, and then after that, a short video which will segue us into heading out into the German hop fields with Dr. Florian and Johan. So after that, please ask any questions you have during the Q&A section, or as they call it in Germany, the F&A section. So Carlos, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. Greetings, everybody, from the United States and Canada, probably from Alaska down to the Rio Grande. It's a very, very big pleasure to add another chapter to our Meanwhile in the Hallertau series from 2020. It's 6 o'clock in the afternoon in Germany. Normally we in Germany like to maintain certain traditions. So don't be surprised, I will be having a beer while we chat this afternoon. You are welcome to do and to make all the questions you like to have. I can summarize in such a crazy year like the year 2020. If there is something you don't need to worry about, at least as of today, is about the quality and quantity of German hops. Looking out to the fields, it all looks very promising. Today I will be joined by Dr. Florian Schul, who is our technical manager, and Johan Bertazzoni, who is our expert for craft brewing. I have prepared a short presentation. Maybe for those of you who don't know or are not so much acquainted with HVG, well, some of you may have seen me in one of the last 10 or 12 CBCs. Maybe you don't recognize me because I'm always wearing my lederhosen, which I could not find this morning because after I moved, I put it into a box and I don't know where it's hidden, but next time I will be wearing it, Laura, I promise. We're going to be giving you a short overview how the harvest has been going, what the impact of COVID has been on hops, and I have prepared a short presentation for you. As you may know, BSG is sourcing their hops directly from us, from the cooperative, which means HVG is having an absolute direct relation with the German hop growers. BSG is our exclusive distributor for the United States and Canada. So if you don't want to be the number 8,000th brewery making nice beer with Citra, you can switch over to German hops. For instance, I'm drinking today a beer from the brewery from Urban Chestnut here in Germany, and they are making a pale ale, actually brewed just with German hops, and it is delicious. So I think then I will then switch over to the presentation. So crop 2020 outlook report. As I was saying, I mean, we can start with the end, and I can tell you, driving through the Hallertau in the morning is really fantastic. The hops looks very good, apart from a couple of hop fields, which are a little plagued by the wilt disease. The hops looks green, nice, shiny, and healthy. And why is that? Well, basically, we have had a very favorable temperature development this year. If we look at this graph where the dark green line, I hope you can see it all nice, is the 30-year average in comparison with the growing season 2020 here in the probably
Hey, Carlos.
your screen in mustard tones. And then
Carlos.
in light, yes?
We can't see the presentation.
You cannot see the presentation?
No.
Hold on a second, please. As I was saying, sorry, this graph here shows the development of the temperature from October to October throughout the year. And this trend line in dark green is the 30-year average. This average has been constantly going up. And you can see that crops 2020 here in mustard tones and crop 2019 here in light green, where in terms of average temperature over the months, over the long year average. However, it's not just the temperature average, it also has to do with the amount of hot days we have during the season. I'm going to switch over to a graph that may irritate your eyes. So what you can see here are two things. This graph shows in columns, in orange, the daily temperature of the crop 2020, or the development of crop 2020. And in blue, you can see the temperatures of the very, very bad and dramatic harvest of 2015. And there you can see that blue out by a far big difference of over 10 degrees centigrades during this vegetative period, where we had temperatures up to 35 degrees. So we had here Mediterranean situation in terms of temperature. That was a very, very bad harvest. So you have two indicators how the harvest will be. One is the temperature average, and the other one is the humidity, of course. If we compare crop 2020 with the previous crop in 2019, you can see that we also had a couple of very, very hot periods during 2019, but during 2020, the average has been, let's say, overall milder. And this is actually, this has shown to be very favorable for the hops. If we now switch to the precipitation, to the rainfall, here you can see again, here in millimeters of rain, the long year average in green, in dark green, and then in mustard and in light green, the comparison between crop 2020 and crop 2019. And the growing season 2019, you can see we had quite some rain during December and January, but then during spring, it was not so much. We had plenty of rain in May and June, and after that, it was drier. And in this season, it has been very favorable that during the start of the growing period, we had mild temperatures and sufficient humidity. Then the hops started to grow very nice. Then in June, at the summer solstice, when the hops reaches trellis height, We had again plenty of rain, and this has all in all shown to be quite favorable. So if we look also again at a graph, which will hopefully not hurt your eyes so much, comparing crop 2020 with crop 2015. You can see that during 2015, actually in those months that were very, very important, we did not only have very high temperatures, but we had very little water supply. And you can see here in this column, this is 50 millimeters of precipitation. Actually, when it was quite important to have water, which was at the beginning of June and then at the beginning of July and the beginning of August, we had some periods of precipitation during 2020 that were very, very favorable. Here, comparing with 2019, you can see what I was telling you. We had rain also actually sufficient, but it was not as well distributed, and when it came already late, and that did not turn out to be so favorable. So we have actually quite optimum conditions this year, and that makes us look optimistic to the harvest, which is starting today. Actually, the weather is what is paramount to the overall results. We have here a graph which may be a combination of different things. Here, the top line is the overall amount of hops harvested during all over Germany in tons. This is, for instance, the harvest 2019, which until now has been the largest harvested quantity of hops ever in the Hallertau, with 48,000, almost 48,500 tons. And if we see the official estimation that was released yesterday, we're going to be surpassing this harvest again. So you can see here how important the weather conditions are, because for instance, in harvest 2013 and crop 2015, with about the same acreage of hops, you have differences of 10,000 tons of hops between one harvest and the other. So yes, the development of the acreage is important, but more important is how the weather gods play with us during a certain harvest. So we can expect for you to be happy as well as brewers that we're going to be seeing in 2020 quite a nice harvest in terms of quantity. This line here at the bottom shows you the amount of alpha acid produced. So in total amount of tons of alpha acid, let's say in a year 2010, we produced 3,600 tons of alpha acid around roughly, and in 2019, we produced 5,200 tons of alpha acid. I think we're going to break the record again this year, where probably the official estimations talks about 5,200 tons of alpha acid. We are a little bit more optimistic than that. So all in all, we are looking at very favorable conditions. I want to give you a short view about not only what has happened in Germany, but also what has happened in the world. In this column graph, you can see the overall amount of hectares cultivated worldwide. So we were coming from a period where the acreage was going down, and we reached the lowest acreage amount around 2013 with about 47,000 hectares of hops. And since then, the trend has been going up. And this upside trend is actually due to your performance, to your breweries, in North America mainly. So overall, if we take into account how much craft beer you guys are making, not only in the States, but worldwide, depending on who you ask, we would be talking about somewhere around 65 million hectoliters. So this additional 16,000 hectares that have come to the ground since 2013, so in the last 8 years, more or less, you can see where they come from. The dark blue column is the acreage here in Germany, and as I showed you before, this has been quite stable over the last years. But here in light blue, you can see how the acreage in the United States has been going hand in hand with a huge increment from this probably 500 breweries to 8,500 breweries here. So this increment has been basically due to the specialty varieties. The situation in Germany from 2019 to 2020, we have had an increment of about 290 hectares, while the United States increased from 19 to 20 around 1,100 hectares of production again. With that, in terms of production, the United States is now by around 4,000 hectares larger in production than Germany. In dark green, you can see here the stable situation of the acreage in the People's Republic of China. Here in small black, you can see the Czech Republic. They had a small reduction of 33 hectares, then in light blue, Poland, and then Slovenia. What does this graph tell you? Basically, that between Germany and the United States is where the music is playing. Now let me show you a little bit how you differentiate that among the different countries, or what the official expectations were of the International Hop Growers Convention as of August now 2020. So you guys in the States with about 25,000 hectares should be producing somewhere around 53,000 tons of hops, and this will account for more or less 6,000 tons of alpha acid. While Germany is estimated to produce around 48,000, 49,000 tons of hops, which will account, as the official estimation says, about the same quantity of alpha like last year. As I was saying, we are here at HVG a little bit more optimistic. When we break the cones and we see how nicely yellow the lupulin glands are, that makes us look for a little bit more favorable outcome. In terms of acreage and in terms of alpha acid, you see that there is a big gap between the two big countries, and then the Czech Republic, China, Poland, and Slovenia. So overall in the world, we're going to be planting around 63,000 hectares of hops, and we may get around 13,300 tons of alpha acid. So that should be actually also a record year from every perspective, from the production of alpha acid and from the production of tons of hops altogether. In this graph, I have dissected the acreage of the different segments, where we are having on one side here in mustard color the overall aroma varieties worldwide with about 22,000 hectares, where most of it is coming from Perle, Tradition, Satz from the Czech Republic, and then Hersbrucker, Tettnanger, and Hallertau Mittelfrüh. Here in dark green, you can see the development of the bitter varieties like Hercules, CTC, Magnum, Polaris, but also here included varieties like the Qingdao flower. And you can see here the skyrocketing ascent of the varieties of the flavor segment, where you have mostly varieties like Citra, Amarillo, Cascade, Simcoe, Centennial. So all these varieties that are going predominantly to the specialty beers and the craft beer segment. So hold on a second, I'm going to have a sip of beer. So altogether and summarizing, since the weather conditions have been so favorable since May and the temperatures during this year have been moderate, we are looking at a very good crop ahead. The hop growers have used plant protection measures due to the weather conditions. There has been, like every year where you have a higher level of humidity, we have a higher risk of diseases in hops. But all in all, we can say that all varieties have developed quite well. So COVID-19, for those, and we have been really following that very closely, COVID is not going to have an influence on the hop volumes. We have to say maybe 4 months ago, we were not so optimistic like we can look back now. The stock situation is extremely different from variety to variety. Remember, we're going this year, when it comes to records, we're also going this year with a record historic high forward contract situation in terms of hops in Germany. So we are confident that unlike in the last 3 years, we may not be seeing any trouble with the fulfillment of the contracts. Unfortunately, it's hitting the Corona year, but on the other side, it's always better to have a good harvest. You can see here, this is the amount of tons since 1995 in Germany. And you can see that we have been going up in terms of ton production from about 15,000 tons to probably 50,000 tons of hops of total production. And that is really, really a huge increment in terms of production. So having said that, and I think that's all for the moment. I'm going to pass over, because these are all dry numbers. Let's take a look at the field and see what Florian has to tell us about HVG's breeding program. So we are breeding varieties. Since I was telling you that we are looking at always higher temperatures, and we're looking at very dry years. So we are breeding in parallel to the official breeding program in Germany. We're looking on our own, also on HVG side, on varieties which should be more resistant against drought. And this is one of the topics that Florian would address now in his presentation. So having said that, then I think I can switch over.
Yes, we do have a quick short video just to show how harvest has started as it's underway right now. So we're going to play that for you, and then we will head out to the field and join Florian. So. All right, Florian, if I could have you join us.
Okay.
Looking good.
Looking good. Okay. Hi to everybody. Thank you, Dan, for introducing me. Thank you, Carlos, for, yes, introducing me, I'm now live on the field. It's not like Carlos has a digital wallpaper background. We are here on the field on one of our breeding yards. And yeah, I think just maybe some additional words about me. Nobody of you, I guess nobody of you really know me. So I'm like Carlos, I'm like Johan Bertelsoni, who we'll talk later. A brewer, studied in Weinstefan, and after my PhD, I was a couple of years head of the research brewery at the Institute for Brewing Science, and now since 2015, so 5 years, I'm with HVG. And yeah, my position, I'm a technical manager, so I would say I'm the link of the hops we sell and the breweries, the technical teams of the breweries. So if they have any issues, they usually contact me. And now that's the reason why I'm here now since 3 years. I work together with, I would say, one of the most experienced and for sure one of the most passionate growers we have here in the Hallertau region, Jakob Schauer. I work here in a HVG breeding program. So yeah, when we talk about breeding, it's, I would say, talking about two different groups. So on the one hand side, we have growers who are mostly interested in getting varieties which have, let's say, an economic benefit for them. So of course they want to earn money with their hops they grow. So their interest is mostly that they get healthy hops, that they have high yielding hops, that they have in the end, yeah, also hops which are requested, of course, by the brewers. And on the other side, when it's about breeding, we have the brewers, and I would say that's a bit more diverse. So we have brewers only or mostly looking on getting cheap hops, cheap alpha for their beers, and the other side, the right side, the extreme side, is then brewers which are really passionate, fascinated about the aroma diversity you can get from hops, also playing around with getting a crispy but smooth bitterness. So to make really all these guys happy is a hard job for a breeder. And yeah, we do our best, let's say, and in that words. And I'm really convinced. So when I go through here with Jakob and we rub the hops, I get a lot of unique aromas. We see here hops, I would say, really bombastic yielding hops. And I'm quite sure that in the future we will have here varieties that will find their way to the market. And I hope that one time when you have the chance to get some of our hops or of these hops, you will say, okay, I'm not only happy, I'm really, let's say, wow, what's that? I never smelled something like this before. I never saw something like this before. Then I would be a happy man. And I'm really, really, really looking forward to brew with all these, let's say, new and unique hop varieties beer. And let's see. So 2020 seems to be really a good year for us when it's about new varieties, about new breeding lands. And I really look forward to, see what this program will offer to us all brewers. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yes, you're very welcome. And I think I prepared yesterday. We had yesterday, let's say, a little summer storm here in the Hallertau region. I prepared a little video because at this time, you see it's getting low light here. It's hard to do any films or to pass through, also because of the mobile connection. And then I think you can show that video. And I'm really looking forward to get questions of you all later on in the question part. Thank you very much.
Yep.
See you later.
So we're gonna play a short video here, and then we will head to the Q&A section. So if you do have any questions, please pass them along. All right. Well, that was great. Now we're going to move on to the Q&A section. So Carlos, Florian, and Johan, if you guys want to join me. Well,
Yes.
thanks, guys. That's great presentation. We do have a couple questions. So the first question that we have is for Florian. How many growers are under irrigation, and are there plans to increase them?
Okay. I would say, I hope I'm not wrong, but I am at the moment in the Hallertau, or in Germany, in the Hallertau region, I know it better, less than 20% of the fields are under irrigation. So that's of course due to the climate we have here. In regular years, it's not a big thing. We have enough water coming from the sky, but as Carlos mentioned, I'm not sure what the future will bring to us. So if the second part of the question, if you ask, does it get more? Yes, but slowly. And I'm not sure if we have in 10 years 60%. I'm not sure. Depends a lot on what the climate will do with us.
Sure. Another question we had come through: are you sourcing hops out of Poland?
No.
No. No.
We are a German hop growers cooperative. So we have in our portfolio all 28 different hop varieties, and well, we're talking about HVG. I don't know whether BSG is having any of the special Polish hop varieties, but when it comes to sourcing hops here, all the hops that is coming or that BSG is sourcing directly from the growers here, coming, selecting, and accompanying. It's not just buying, it's accompanying all the process of cultivation. It's accompanying all the process of plant treatment. It's accompanying all the developments in research and development of new varieties, and this very, very close cooperation that we have with BSG will certainly bring in future probably a couple of more surprises. I think we have very unique developments in the pipeline, and we hope that we can present them to you in next year or the year after that.
Sure. We have a question here from Mark Verona. I think you know who he is, Carlos. He said, thanks guys. Do either of you have any suggestions for hops that are interesting, unique, or particularly nice that are potentially not so well known or underappreciated? Something a brewer who wants to differentiate might want to explore.
Well, maybe Johan can tell you guys a little bit about the beers we had planned for the CBC this year, because that was actually targeting exactly that same question. What about the new kids in the block who is going to be making noise in future?
Well, are you guys hearing me well?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So maybe before I start answering this question, I will quick introduce myself. I'm also here with my colleague, Dr. Schül. And I'm Johan. I started working last year for HVG. And as Carlos was explaining, I'm taking care of the craft brewers and doing some trials and batches, experimenting with German varieties. And the question mark, I really like it. I think we
lost your sound.
Well, hey guys, if you could get your sound back, we will actually.
Okay. Oh, hear me right now?
There we go. Now we can hear you.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So we try to answer that question all the time, especially for craft brewers. It's not always.
Oh, we seem to be having technical difficulties out in the field. So why don't we just pause that question for now? Maybe you can answer, or Florian might need to, the next question. But I think, Carlos, are there any German aroma varieties that you would feel would lend themselves particularly well to American type IPAs?
Well, the IPAs we have advertised in a lot of our last exhibitions, what we call a German IPA, and I will send you a link to the recipe that we have published in the magazine of the international magazine of the German hop growers. We have quite good experience with a combination of varieties. You know that the IPAs, they are all relying on a very complex and elegant dry hopping, which on one side needs to be citrusy and fruity, piney, but on the other side needs to be on top, we think, of a very gentle kettle hopping. So it's like the add-on. So we have the pale ales and the IPAs we have done. They are normally bittered with noble hops in the kettle and in the whirlpool. So with Hallertau Tradition and Saphir, for instance, but also putting some Mandarina Bavaria and some Hallertau Blanc in the whirlpool. So giving some of the geraniol and of the oils for the yeast to metabolize during fermentation. And then on the dry hopping side, we really have very good results combining Polaris due to this menthol appealing flavor that it has with varieties like Hallertau Blanc or like Calista and Mandarina Bavaria. So we have been playing around with Ariana, with Calista. So all these varieties that have a high thiol content, that have a very high ester content, where the oxygen fraction of the hops is quite high, have really performed incredibly well in hops. For instance, this pale ale here is done with German Cascade, so with a Cascade cultivated in Germany. So this one is from Urban Chestnut, as I was saying. And this one is with Hüllmelon, with Hallertau Mittelfrüh, with Mandarina Bavaria and Cascade, for instance. And this one has a very nice, a real typical pale ale note, being gentle and really appealing with all these mango, passion fruit flavors in combination with the piney notes. So unfortunately, the problem is that a lot of the pale ales and of the IPAs have grown with the recipe books where you only see American varieties, which makes sense because they are in the front of their door. However, if you really want to differentiate and make an IPA or a pale ale, which is in the same profile but different in terms of how gentle it is, you should really ask your BSG hop expert what he can recommend. I think there are already pale ales and IPAs. If you look at Untapped or at the brewing rating apps in the internet, you will see that there are already many brewers advertising pale ales and IPAs brewed with German hops. And you will see that also in the international beer contests, we are present in such a category, which normally is not where we are the strongest.
Well, we like to aggressively hop beers here in the States. So, it's fun to see breweries experimenting with different hops and trying some of the German hop, heavily hopped IPAs. So another question for you. Can you explain what type 45 hops are and you think that they should be more widely used by craft brewers?
To answer the second question, yes, it makes sense for craft brewers to use pellets type 45. I mean, the whole hype of cryo hops and the like is something that, to tell you the truth, came a little bit as a surprise for us, because pellets type 45 or lupulin enriched pellets have been out in the market since the 70s, and they are widely used for, let's say, our conventional and typical varieties. The pellets type 45 really offer two things which are favorable for the brewer. One is that by having a reduced amount of leaf material, you are reducing also the volume increase of the pellets in the liquid, and with that, you are also reducing the losses of beer, which makes sense. And on the other side, when you make very, let's say, very exaggerated, what do I mean by exaggerated? When you have a brewery that is putting 5-6 kilograms of hops for dry hopping, maybe they should look, because there comes a border of saturation where the last additional kilo may not be totally necessary.
Sure.
And so with all the things that I am hearing with breweries complaining about some of their beers having too strong of a leaf hop character, you can reduce that, of course, by using pellets type 45, by using, well, we call it pellets type 45. Basically, this is more or less a commercial name. It gives you a certain idea that from 100 kilos of hops, you will gain about 40 kilos of pellets at the end. This is subject to certain variations. So if we take a variety like Mandarina Bavaria, for instance, that has a normal alpha acid content somewhere in the region between 7 and 8% of alpha acid, you can do with a lupulin enrichment. What is the lupulin enrichment? Basically, you freeze the hops down. There are different methods to do that, but we freeze the hops down to minus 36 degrees centigrade. By doing that, the lupulin glands become stone hard, and then you can grind the hops, and the powder you can send through rotating sieves, and by doing that, you remove part of the leaf fraction.
Sure.
So if you're having, let's say, normal hop dosages, somewhere in the region of, in the kettle, of 100 grams per hectoliter, 200, even 300 grams per hectoliter, putting some hops in the whirlpool, this is normally something that your kettle should be able to swallow. But if you are putting, after that, 3 or 4 kilos of leaf material for dry hopping, you can reduce the overall volume. Remember, the pellets type 90 have a volume increment of 5 to 7 times the normal. So if you put 1 liter of volume of pellets in the tank, this will, like a sponge, grow 5 to 7 times higher. And normally this is liquid that you would be losing. Some breweries do some centrifugation to gain that. So the bigger the breweries are and the larger the tanks, then you have systems of recirculation in order to avoid these things. So there are a lot of smart people trying to find solutions to remove the coarse material from the liquid.
Right.
But then you have the taste aspect, which can be, in our view, and Florian can tell you probably more about that, positively influenced by the use of pellets type 45.
Well, luckily, after a couple technical difficulties, we apologize for that. We have Florian and Johan back. So maybe Johan,
Yes.
Let's have a chance to answer that question you've been trying so hard to answer.
Okay, so sorry, first of all, because of the connections issues. So yes, we are dealing a lot with different trials. We're using different hop varieties in order to brew different beer styles. We are experimenting. I don't know, because we had problems with the connection, how long Carlos has spoken about the trials that we have been doing. But
No,
for
I
example,
have not touched the topic.
for the CBC fair, we try to do 4 different beer styles. So we start by doing some classical and conventional beer styles, such as a German Pils. Therefore, we wanted to use Saphir and some hops from the breeding lines, so that people in the state can have a really clean and crisp German-style Pilsner, but with a well balance of the sweetness of the malt and the bitterness and hoppy flavors coming from the hops. On the other side, we have seen worldwide, not only in the States, an explosion regarding this hazy New England IPAs. So, and for this specific New England IPA or new beer style category from the IPAs, a lot of people are always using the same hop varieties. So we wanted to do here or to propose an alternative to the Citra, Simcoe, Mosaic, and therefore we use our German special flavor varieties, where we wanted to do, because at the end we did it here in Germany. So we were playing with different quantities, hop dosing additions or times, and combinations. So the main target was here to produce a really fruity and nice New England pale ale, but with a high drinkability. So we know that these kind of beers, sometimes they have a really high alcohol content. So we try to adapt it to our philosophy. So increase the drinkability, but keeping this fruitiness. On the other side, we also have done a wheat beer, a Weiss beer, where we also dry hop it as well to increase the flavors and the fruitiness. That therefore we use, I think we wanted to use Calista. So hops that it's also sometimes really nice citrus. And yeah, so basically to wrap up, we wanted to do a combination between German beer styles and new beer styles with really nice hoppy flavors, keeping the drinkability high. And this is our philosophy that we have been practicing. And if you come to Nuremberg to our stand, you will also get from German IPAs, but to lager beers with really high drinkability.
Well, we certainly miss CBC this year and some of the great German beers that you guys do bring. So look forward to next year, hopefully getting to try them and seeing.
Yes, I'm also looking forward to the next year and try to show you what we have been doing here in Germany, experimenting. Sure. And yes.
Well, excellent. On that note, are there any German brewers that have started using dry hopping techniques, or are they still kind of concentrating on the hot side additions?
Yes, of course. Dry hopping is a huge topic worldwide, starting from research projects to going to the smallest craft brewers, not only in the States, also in Germany, to the biggest breweries. So we are working here also with breweries or brewers who are using this technique as well. So we're also doing, for example, presentation or advisory or consultancy regarding how to use hops into the cold side, how to do the dosing or the hopping, quantities, varieties, time of additions. And well, this is also a huge topic that we will need another webinar to explain all the factors that you have or all the specific variables that you have in the cold side or in the dry hopping of beer.
Sure. And then I believe, Carlos, you have a question that you were going to answer.
Sorry, Dan. I did not get you on.
Oh, okay. I believe it was, have you noticed differences between single hop varieties when they are grown in the US versus when they're grown in Germany? You had mentioned German Cascades, for instance.
Yes. Well, we have research papers from the past regarding the varieties Comet, the varieties Cascade, the varieties Nugget, which are being cultivated in Germany. I know that you are cultivating in the States also Magnum, Tettnanger, and other German varieties. I think that there is, at the moment, quite good basis to fundament that the varieties here in Germany, depending on how they are grown, normally the terroir plays a big role. I'm not saying anything new there. On the other side, if you see, we are here at HVG cooperating very close together with Virgil Gamache Farms, and we are cultivating Amarillo here in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And you can rest assured that VGF would not be growing hops here in Europe if they were not really sure that the measures they take and all the analysis they do in order to guarantee that the hops will have the profile the breweries want, they wouldn't be doing that here. So the level of expertise and analysis, and I suppose I invite everyone who wants to dive more deeper into those questions to speak with Darren, what his experiences are, for instance, cultivating Amarillo in Germany. We have the Cascade, for instance, performs very, very well here. And the Cascade is part of the breeding lines for varieties like Hüllmelon, Mandarina Bavaria, and Hallertau Blanc. So we have historically a combination of the breeding of US genetics and European genetics in order to make a better, for instance, the American varieties, since they are grown in the desert, they are normally less susceptible to drought like the continental varieties are here in Germany. So there is a difference in the terroir, but I would say the difference between crop years, let's say a Cascade in a year 2015 and a year 2018, the differences are higher than the Cascade between Germany and the United States. And we have a couple of brewers who also, for reasons of security of supply and for reasons of sustainability, want to have, for some of their specialty varieties, one leg here in Europe, because if they rely on those varieties for special beer types, it's always good to have another source of supply.
Sure. Well, that kind of wraps up our questions. I don't know if you guys had any other closing words or, anything you wanted to add. All right. Well, Carlos, Florian, I can't see you, but I think you're holding the camera. And Johan, there he is.
I'm back. Yes, we're here together.
Well, thank you guys for sharing all your expertise and knowledge today. Carlos, it would have been nice of you to share some beer, but I understand.
Over 21, I am allowed to do that.
Well, everyone, if we didn't get to any questions today or you have follow-up questions, maybe watching this on YouTube, please send them to webinars@bsgcraft.com, and we'll work with Carlos and Florian and Johan and everyone at HVG to get those answers to you. And remember, you can register for future webinars on our website at bsgcraft.com/webinars. And, well, from everyone at BSG and HVG, Thanks for tuning in. I'm Dan Carney with Carlos, Johanna, and Florian. And we thank you all for joining us today. So, well, cheers, guys. Good to see
Thank you
you.
for joining us. It has been a pleasure, and feel free to send us any question if afterwards there are things which were not totally clear. We'll try in BSG series, meanwhile in the Hallertau, to keep you still posted with all the situation that that is going on during the harvest. We still have around a month to go, so there is a lot still to happen. So wait for our news.
Sounds good. We're excited. So, well, thanks again for joining us, and we will talk to you guys later.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Cheers.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
See you.